Welcome to the Live Full, Work Fun podcast. This is the show to encourage you to live your life to the fullest and do fun work that fuels your lifestyle. Hi, I'm your host, Gayla Scrivener. Every week, you'll be introduced to amazing guests, useful resources, and inspirational stories. You'll discover opportunities and perspectives to shape your version of living full and working fun. Hi there, and welcome to a brand new year and the newly branded Live Full Work Fun podcast. I am so glad you're here. Over the next several weeks, you're going to meet some amazing people I've met along my little life's adventures. And last year, I brought on many guests onto my podcast to learn more about them and learn from them. And I came to realize that I have so much fun recording these interviews and that there is this commonality with everyone that is on my show. Each one had made shifts in their lives to have a more full life and to make work more enjoyable and fun for themselves. A common thread to all their stories that challenges must be overcome and mindsets must be shifted. So over the next few weeks, I have a wonderful lineup of guests, and I'm so excited for you to meet Lyss House today. Now, I met Lyss in person last August when I went down to Nashville for a mastermind and book launch event. She is such a delight to talk to and lights up any room that she goes into. She is a brand strategist and consultant, helping small businesses create confident designs that produce income and impact. She creates captivating brands for the modern entrepreneur. I love that. You know, as we were having our sidebar conversation and learning about each other and just chit-chatting at the event, we discovered that we had some similarities in our paths. Now, she had graduated college and was expected to go the traditional career path. Although she had the skills and worked hard in the roles that she was hired for, something was amiss. She felt like she was a square peg trying to fit in a round hole. I can certainly relate. Through the grind of figuring out her place in a corporate job, she found joy in graphic design and branding as a side gig. Then, one day, she was let go from her job. Instead of letting the shame of being fired consume her, she made the decision to create her work from anywhere lifestyle and make her side hustle her full-time gig. We decided to tuck ourselves away in a corner of the room and hit record. I am so glad we did. I loved reliving our conversation as I was editing this episode. So excuse any echoing or other background noise. I'm just telling you right now, I figure that if it feels right, the energy is there, you gotta hit record. And I'm glad we did. So in this episode, you'll be inspired by Lyss's story of courage to go after a career of her dreams. You'll hear how she helps her clients and works through the challenges of entrepreneurship. So here we go. Why don't you join me with my conversation with Lyss House. So we're at an event and we've gotten to talk to each other for a little bit and we started to realize, hey, we kind of have similar stories. And I met you virtually, I don't know, a week or two ago. Just recap, what do you do? Because we were having a side conference and I wanted to get this on and record this.
Awesome. I know. We got to stop doing that. So I am a brand strategist. I come with a background in design. So I work with small businesses and entrepreneurs to help really build a personal brand online that represents the expert that they are. I am so passionate about helping people show up online as the expert that they are, because oftentimes we get kind of stuck in these traps of marketing. Maybe, we're just starting out, maybe we're established for a long time. We're having a hard time communicating who we are, or we're maybe not reaching our audience online. So I really help build a strategy and then the visual side of things to market yourself online.
That is great because it's not just visual. It's not just words. It's all packaged up. Is this what you've always done?
No, I have.
What's your history?
Yeah, I have quite the story. So I come from corporate America. I kind of have a typical entrepreneur story where I graduated from college and wasn't really sure what I wanted to do in the world. I felt that I had received an amazing education. I had kind of a, quarter life crisis maybe in college or a little bit after college of what is my life going to look like, out in the real world? What is it that I really want to do? So I ended up just taking jobs that I felt, that fit my skill sets, but maybe weren't within my field of study. I actually started out in college. You have a little bit of a background in music education, kind of realized that I didn't maybe want to be a teacher for my whole life. So I ended up changing my major to kind of double major with business with a focus in marketing. I got a double major in music and then a minor in religion and philosophy. So I'm kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because those things I think kind of connect in different ways that maybe you wouldn't realize. But that being said, it's a lot of different areas. What am I going to do with that after I graduate, right? Out in the real world. So I just took jobs that fit my skill set. I ended up in marketing and sales roles, kind of more general roles. And I found that oftentimes I would be in these positions and I would end up kind of taking on different roles that maybe weren't the specific job itself, right? Didn't fit within the job description. My bosses found out that I did graphic design as a hobby. So they'd say, you know what? We're not going to send this piece to the marketing department. We're just going to have Alyssa do it in-house. I would design, my friends' baby shower invitations or graduation party invitations and just kind of had it as a hobby. I'm self-taught with design. For those of you who are listening, that may remember MySpace. That's how I
know MySpace.
Learned to code.
You look too young for that.
I know. Well, I was on the early end of it, but I was like a 13-year-old learning how to code, and it's crazy to think back on that now. And I think a lot of us designers kind of have that experience that may be where we started or got a little taste of coding and design back in the day. So anyway, I, went kind of from job to job. I was just never really finding a place that fit, never finding good leadership, to be honest. I always have had mentors in my life. That's something I really value. I've always had good leaders throughout college and professors, and was really disappointed by the lack of leadership in the jobs that I was finding. I was finding many of the jobs I was in, you were just expected to come in, clock in, be in your chair by 8 o'clock. Doesn't matter what you're doing, as long as you're in the chair, as long as you're there and somebody sees your body, check in, check out, be there, kind of just stay quiet, stay under the radar and do your job. And that's not really my personality. I am a creative and I also have kind of that type A side, right? So I'm very organized. I like processes. I think I'm very efficient. So it's kind of a contradiction even internally that I have these creative ideas and my brain works creatively, but I also am a leader. So I found it just, I don't think anybody could ever really figure me out. Coworkers and bosses. And I think that just was challenging. It was definitely challenging for me. And I think it was challenging for them. So it was just kind of, trying to fit a square peg in a round hole at every job that I had. Or, then I would be in these creative positions, jobs that I absolutely loved, but wasn't really making money because I was working for small businesses or they were just artistic positions that didn't pay well. So you're kind of seeing this juxtaposition of being in an environment that's really stuffy and corporate, and sure, I can pay my bills, but I'm hating my life at the end of the day, right? I'm living in a city at the time that I didn't love, kind of just, living the day-to-day routine, living for the weekend, right? Living for those vacation days, the very few that you get, especially when you're young and starting out in your career. So I actually ended up getting fired from one of those corporate jobs. I used to feel a lot of shame around that, and now it's just part of my story. I'm actually so grateful that happened because I know I wouldn't be where I am now. The job was not the right fit, but you keep a job until you don't. And
That
I was let
tipping
go
point,
from that job,
yeah.
and that was the tipping point. And at the time, I had also been freelancing on the side. So I was just
Good for
picking up,
you.
even before that happened. And it's kind of funny to see maybe the writing was on the wall, or maybe that freelance work on the side was preparing me for the next season. I didn't know it at the time, but like I had said, making some invitations or finding different agencies that needed some hourly support, I was already doing that. So I was really able to kind of step up into that freelancing world and just say, okay, until I find a new corporate job, which that's what I started doing. I was searching the job boards, which is so hard and tiring and frustrating, especially again to kind of, you keep just seeing these jobs and that you're just checking the boxes that will end up draining you, right? Nothing was ever like, this is the dream, this is my dream job. So it was really tiring. So, but during that time, just kept freelancing, kept finding more clients, finding agencies. In the design world, we call it white labeling, where I'm working for other agencies and not getting to put the work in my portfolio, making like $15 an hour on their time, on their schedules, on their projects. But I was really building my design skills and also just building those kind of freelance business skills. So I got to the point in that season where I was still looking for jobs, but I realized I don't think I could take on a full-time job at this point and keep all of these clients. I was working a lot and I wasn't probably making as much as I had wanted at the time, but I wasn't able to go back to work. So that was kind of the crossroads that I said, well, do I keep looking for jobs and maybe, get rid of some of these agency contracts, or am I going to dive head first and hustle and bust and work to do this? And I made the decision, like, I'm going to give it a try. I can always go find a job, right? Even if it's serving. I grew up in a household where my parents owned a restaurant. I know how to serve. I served through college. Even if I have to go serve and bartend, I'm willing to do it. Or even if, and that's not to look down on the service industry at all. I just was in a position that I was willing to do what it took to make that happen. And at the end of the day, knowing that if I have to go get a day job, that's still not a bad thing, right?
Exactly.
So that's kind of the long and short of how I got to my entrepreneur start.
What was the biggest challenge during that time?
That's a great question.
Well, by the way, as you're thinking of that, I think it's fantastic that you were doing some things on the side. You were doing freelancing on the side, because in my story is like, I had this weird guilt. You come to a position. My company totally quit. I mean, they closed. I helped them close the whole company down. And I was just like, I don't want to go find another job. So I didn't. And it was sink or swim. And I think the longer that we are entrepreneurs, the more unemployable we become.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And that can feel so shame-based because we feel like we don't fit in, or there's something wrong with us, or, and we have to work and mold ourselves. There are definitely things that I learned from those jobs, that maybe I was too outspoken. Maybe I shared my opinion. Maybe I made a face when I shouldn't, right? Like,
it's all learning.
It's all learning, but there is a spirit and a thing about us that I think is our best asset now as entrepreneurs. But it's very hard for people who aren't the same as us to see that, or maybe who, as I was talking about leadership, who maybe don't have that leadership quality to see those as strengths and use them, right?
Yeah. So during that time, I mean, what kind of challenges did you have?
I would say, looking back, probably, and this is something that I still work on. It's still a process. It's still a struggle. I'm still maybe facing the complications from that. It was very isolating. It was a very isolating time. I was in a relatively new city, but as I mentioned, after college, you're kind of in this whole new world as it is, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody graduates and they're in different places. Your whole world underneath you kind of is just gone.
Right.
And I was in a relatively new city, starting this career as an entrepreneur on my own, and I was working nonstop. I was working around the clock, and I'm so grateful for that hustle at the time. I definitely don't. So I guess those go hand in hand. It was isolating because I was just spending so much time working. I wasn't really making time for a social life or even for my family. I just was really on my own. Side note, I'm an oldest child and I'm very independent. So I think in a way that was helpful. But, I have seen how it has been challenging as an entrepreneur to find that community, find people, and also find that balance within yourself. So I think at the time it was great, but not only was I isolated, I was working so much, working around the clock.
We do that.
We do.
At the very beginning, it's
Yeah.
like, oh, we can't clock out at 5.
Right.
It's just weird. Why would we want to do that?
Right. Because not only is it exciting, but we're also, this is make or break. And this is still, again, an amazing lesson to continue through, but there's so much pressure, I think, especially at the beginning, because you're just figuring it out as you go. And we still are, but you're figuring it out as you go. And we're really only responsible for ourselves. Our success is on us and our failures are on us. So that time to really have no other income and yeah, it was make or break.
Do you consider yourself a risk taker or someone that's more steady?
That's interesting. I think it might be a little mix of a both. I think, again, that kind of entrepreneurial spirit. I think taking these big plunges, I do things maybe when I don't feel ready, when I'm still scared. Those are practices that I have to instill in my daily life because I think I prefer the steady, right? We prefer safe, steady, comfortable environments, but that's not where we grow, right? So when something feels uncomfortable, when it feels scary, there's a lot of work we have to do internally. I think that's where community comes in. That's why it's so important to build yourself up with people around you who can speak into your life, whether that's mentors, whether that's other entrepreneurs, even romantic partners, people who are in your life, your friends, your family that can, hey, you can do this. They can speak into your life. I know this feels scary, but you're ready to do it and you're just afraid.
Well,
right?
I think that for us that like the steady, it does take that tipping point. You had that tipping point that is like, I'm going to make this work. It was decision time. And the more that we work that risk muscle, it's not so bad.
Right.
Yep. How about with your clients? I mean, you're almost like an outsider looking in.
Totally.
And you're bringing out their brand through the creative process and making them look great and figuring out the right colors to go with their brand and their message and the designs to go to fit them. What's the biggest challenge that you have, what your clients have that you help solve?
Yeah, so I think the biggest piece of the branding visual puzzle is oftentimes, and it's really exciting, so it's totally easy to do, and it's one of my favorite pieces of my job, is we really often want to jump right into the visuals. Oh my God, I have to get my website up. I have to get a logo. I love this color. I want to use this color. I want to use this font. I want my logo to have a tree and a flower and a heart and whatever in it. We have these visions of how we have it in our head that our brand is going to look. But the biggest challenge that I run into, or I think we need to help educate our clients, and that's a piece of what I do, is we have to actually take a step back from the visual side of things. Before we do anything visual and pretty, we really start with a foundation of strategy. And that is crucial. I think that could be applied to so many different areas, but especially with design, especially with visuals, we forget that we need a plan in order for this to actually work. It's my goal to build brands that last. You shouldn't be rebranding every 6 months, every year. And believe me, I have rebrand syndrome because I'm a designer and I love that trends are changing and we're changing, we're evolving. So it often feels like, I want my visuals to reflect that. So that's also a piece of the education that we don't want to maybe lock ourselves into a visual brand until we're really on a path of knowing where we're headed and where we want to be. We don't have to be there yet. That's part of what I do, is I help bridge that gap of, we're here right now, we know where we want to be, but we need help getting there.
Do you find it hard because you get over anxious clients and they want to be at the end of the road yesterday? Do you find it hard to put on the brakes a little bit so that they can think and reflect? Because it's like, just throw the website together.
Right.
Come on.
Right. I think that is a big piece of, if we do a discovery call together, if we do a sales call together, or even if you look at my website, that is part of my process. And it can be a little jarring or startling for people who just want to get it up right away. But the reality that I always tell them is, you are going to save so much more money and so much more time, resources, your sanity, if we do this right from the beginning. So if we just take a deep breath and do this step by step in the right order, it's going to be so much better in the long run than if we rush to the end.
What I'm hearing you say, lack of a better word, you're building that relationship with your client to get to know them so that you can visually represent them well.
Totally.
And I know when I started out, I did not want to be a Fiverr person because it was like it's just too empty.
It's very transactional.
Yeah. And art, there's a lot of feeling within art. So I think that it's great that you take the time and it's not transactional. And probably the client that thinks it is, probably not the right client for you.
Absolutely. And that, I think, what you just said, what you just touched on, is really the root of what we're doing, is building a brand, is building a relationship over time. So I'm building a relationship with my clients, but I'm also helping my clients build the relationships with their clients. So it's like this chain of relationships, but that's what a brand is. That is what building a sustainable, long-lasting business means, is that you're taking people with you, you're taking them on a journey, and you're opening lots of doors and lots of opportunities for them to come in, and then kind of having them be on the ride as we want to build fans and followers and friends that come with us.
Well, what I like what you do is that you work with your clients, get to know them, and you bring out things that they don't necessarily see. It's because we can't see the goodness within ourselves sometimes. And when you have someone like yourself drawing that out, it's like, man, I didn't know I could look so good. This is great.
Absolutely. Exactly. And that's the really fun piece, is often I think my clients have a hard time transitioning maybe into personal brands or being the face of the brand, or even if, you run a business that you're the CEO or the founder, even if you have a product. But building a brand is allowing yourself to shine through. People connect, your clients, your customers are choosing to work with you or buy your products or services because of you, right? Your services are amazing, but you are the piece that is connecting that. So I think that often my clients get very nervous, or it's very new to be the face of your brand. Sometimes they feel uncomfortable. It feels salesy to them. It may feel a little vain. Sometimes I've heard like, oh, I don't really want all these pictures of me on my website. It's really uncomfortable. I don't want people to think I'm selfish or this is about me. And I remind them, and it's a process. It's a journey, and it takes time. But usually by the end of our time that we work together, they realize, and I remind them, it's all about your intention, right? So if you're here to provide value for your clients, if you're here to show up for your customers and provide them with the best experience, product, service, whatever, that's what's going to shine through. People will 100% be able to see your intentions, and if those intentions are authentic. And that is what I help people do.
Awesome. That is wonderful.
Thank you.
Well, what resource or book has really made an impact on you professionally?
Well, I'm just going to talk about it because we're here. So
Okay, just talk about it.
We're here right now at Mike Kim's mastermind meetup. We're also celebrating his book launch. It just came out. It's called You Are the Brand. And I am certified by Mike as a coach, and I wouldn't be saying it if I didn't believe it. This book is a really amazing step-by-step guidebook to start building your own personal brand. It's definitely something that I have started implementing with my own clients, and it helps me put kind of these really crazy, hard, sometimes confusing, ambiguous terms or what it means to be a brand, to have a brand. It makes it really simple and really tangible. So I highly recommend. I know it's available on Kindle and paperback. So that's the book I've most recently read on branding, and I think that that's a great place to start.
I think so too. Obviously we're both here at this event because we believe in it. We've known Mike through different channels and through the years, and the way that it's laid out, the book is laid out. I've heard some of these teachings through his podcast, through his courses, and then laid out so it's not simple, but
it is.
But it is, and down to earth. It's not showy or unrealistic. You can create a lifestyle that you want, and as he says, it does take work. Anything worth having does take work.
Absolutely.
But there's a step to it, and it's really good. So if anybody's I wish I had that book 10 years ago, because I just didn't get it. Of course, I didn't even know what personal branding was back then. Well, how can we follow you?
Yeah, well, I would love to offer the listeners a really great resource here. It's right on my website. I'm sure we'll put it in the show notes if that's okay.
Oh, yes.
It's lisshouse.com/podcast. I made it really easy for you since we're on a podcast here. But it is my free confident brand guide. So I really believe in building confident brands, right? We should be confident in our branding. And this is a 15-page workbook. It's totally free. And it really helps you start asking the questions. Like I said, before we get to any design, it really helps dive deep into the questions about ourselves, about our businesses, about our goals before we get to that visual side of things. So that's totally free. I would love to offer that. You can also find me on Instagram. I love hanging out there. That's where I share a lot of my life. I love to travel. We have a lot in common that we both are living nomadically. So if you're into travel and food, that's where I like to hang out on Instagram to just show, hey, this is the life that I've been able to build because of this business, right? Because of this work that I'm doing, I've been able to craft the life of my dreams.
Wonderful. Thanks for being here with me.
Thank you. This was so great. Thank you for having me.
I am so proud of Lyss. She is doing it, living the life she wants and creating a career to fit her lifestyle to work from anywhere. Be sure to download her Confident Branding Guide. The link is right there in the show notes. Also, I know this because I was messaging Lyss just recently. She does have openings for new clients, so be sure to go to her website to learn more. I'm glad you are here today. If you haven't done so yet, please subscribe. And if you're feeling extra generous, why not leave a review? But you know what would be even better? If you would just share this episode. Grab the link or, just forward this episode to someone you know who would enjoy Lyssa's story. Well, thanks for listening. Until next time, have a fantastic week. Live full, work fun.